Stories with a stoner. Not that kind of stoner. This kind of stoner. Hey guys, and welcome to my channel, On the Top Boutique. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. In this series, we go over some inspirational reading while you get to watch me make lovely costumes like this. I think this is the costume that we're going to be featuring on this episode. So for our first ever kickoff, we are going to be doing a book titled Sheep Ears by the author Sherry Witt. It is a collection of true impacting short stories about listening to the Good Shepherd and doing his will. I've read this book several years ago and decided to go ahead and reread it. I found it to be quite inspirational, quite funny, little golden nuggets all throughout. The author is Sherry Witt. And I had the pleasure of knowing her and her boys growing up together with them in Pine Bluff. So I'm glad you're here. I hope you enjoy watching things get made beautiful. I will list the materials that I use down below. And then I will also put in the description a link to Sherry's book so that if you want to go ahead and read ahead, you're more than welcome to. I'm not going to be offended. So yeah, each episode will have a couple of questions at the end, and you're going to get my real reaction to those. Some of them have predefined answers, and I'll go ahead and answer those as well. But I do hope that if you like what you see and you like what you hear, that you'll click on that subscribe button, follow me, and you'll get notified. I do hope to drop these every Saturday, but I'm really excited. So let's go ahead and jump in for chapter 1. Have you ever acted quickly? One of the first times that I heard the specific instructions from God was in December of 1982. My third son, Paul, was 2 weeks old. I was pacing back and forth in the living room, trying to get him to sleep when I felt an inner voice telling me to take $125 and give it to Cindy Johnson, an acquaintance of mine. And do it immediately, he said. God, is that you, or am I hearing my own words? I thought. What was I supposed to do? Just call her up and insist she take the money? I didn't even think she needed it. She probably feel insulted. Please don't embarrass me. What if I'm wrong? Then I'll really look foolish. Besides, God, I don't even have that much money. He said, yes, you do. It's in the top drawer of your dresser. I had forgotten all about that money, but he knew exactly where it was and how much it was. It had to be God. I had planned to use it to buy Christmas gifts, but it was more than I actually needed. Now that I knew it really was God directing me, I was determined to complete my assignment. Cindy lived in Conway, Arkansas, about 60 miles away. My husband and I attended the same church as her parents, Travis and Cindy Johnson, so I hoped they wouldn't think I was totally insane. I called them and told them about the urgency. Travis replied, "Baby, I don't think she needs any money." I told him that I didn't really think she did either, but I had pretty specific instructions. He said, well, in that case, on your word, I will call her and tell her I am coming to bring her the money. I was relieved that he didn't ask a lot of questions. I had no answers, just a knowing in my spirit. I didn't hear anything from them for about a week. I knew I had done the right thing, but I still felt kind of weird about it. When I finally saw Travis, I asked him if he had ever figured out why the money was so urgent. He apologized for not getting back in touch with me sooner. Cindy knew a couple in Conway who had just had a baby, and she was coming home from the hospital the very day you called. Her friends had just gotten an eviction notice. Unless they could come up with $125, they had nowhere to go. Since we took the money to them that day, they had a place to bring their newborn baby. I was stunned. I didn't even know the couple with the baby, but God had been aware that Cindy knew them. God also knew He could trust me to get the money to Cindy, and that she would take the money to them. God knew that He could trust Travis to believe me and respond quickly. You see, it wasn't just me God had depended on. It was all of us. It was an amazing chain of events. God knew everything. We just had to trust His voice. I had a lot of questions. Why did God pick me? Why didn't He use someone in Conway to give them the money? How did I manage to have the exact amount of cash at Christmas time when my own family, including 3 kids with a newborn? What with our limited income, this last point was in itself a miracle. What if I had waited until the next day to work up the nerve to approach her parents? I don't know the answers to those questions, but I have my suspicions. Maybe God had asked someone in Conway, but they refused. I'm guessing that God gave us the surplus and had me set the money aside, forget about it, so I have it on hand for this emergency. I know that giving Sarah this money was not a thought I would have typically had on my own, so it must have been God speaking to me. Maybe He picked me because I was willing. Perhaps God was training my sheep ears to hear His voice and to trust Him. Another incident occurred 2 years later when I was mowing the backyard of my neighbor across the street. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon and about 100 degrees. I heard that inner voice once again. Get $125 and give it to Mr. Rice for his daughter, Sarah. I was extremely hot and tired and only had 5 more rows to go. I said, God, can it wait until I'm through mowing? No, not understanding why, but recognizing the voice, I said, okay. The amount of money seemed familiar. I remembered the other time I had distinctly heard God, so this time I was a little less resistant. I went to my house, got the money, and took it to Mr. Rice. When I relayed the message I had heard from God, he told me that he appreciated it, but he didn't think that Sarah needed any money at this time. I told him I didn't think she needed it either, but would he please call her to come get the money? I shared the previous miracle with Mr. Rice, so I think he was more willing than he would have been otherwise. He promised me he would talk to Sarah. I finished mowing the grass, took a shower, and went back to Mr. Rice's house. I was really curious about why I needed to act so quickly. When I got there, he looked at me with a quirky smile. I started to apologize for the inconvenience, but he interrupted me. His normally calm demeanor was now animated. You won't believe this, but Sarah had pawned her wedding ring. It had to be picked up today or be put up for sale at the pawn shop. She was able to get it out of hock before the place closed. We both sat there in amazement. He hadn't known about the ring, nor had I, but God knew. What if I had been too embarrassed to approach Mr. Rice? What if Mr. Rice had been unwilling to call his daughter? How did I come to have the exact amount of money again? What if I had finished mowing, taken a shower, eaten, rested, and then gone to tell him about what I had heard from God? It might have been too late. I only know that when I hear God's voice inside, I can tell it's him because the words are peaceful and telling me something I would not have thought of on my own. I may have some doubts, but I feel peace when I commit to doing his will. He will never ask me to do anything contrary to the scriptures. I don't have to know all the answers. I only need to obey. Do you think all God wants are sacrifices, empty rituals just for show? He wants you to listen to him. Plain listening is the thing, not staging a lavish religious production. 1 Samuel 15:22. I once heard someone say that if you hear that inner voice telling you to do something quickly, then it can't be God. But I respectfully disagree. Jesus turned water into wine at a wedding feast, John 2:1-10. What would have happened if they had waited 2 hours before gathering the water pots? The guest would have gone home and the miracle would have been ineffective. And what about the time Jesus spit into the dust, made a paste with saliva, rubbed it in a blind man's eyes, and told him to wash it in the pool of Siloam? If that man had waited an hour before doing so, he would have ended up with crusty, muddy, still blind eyes, rather than having his sight restored. When opportunity arises and God prompts, please say yes. You never know. Someone's miracles may depend on your quick action. That's the end of the first chapter. There are 8 questions, and like I said, some of them have pre-answered responses already. But before I get to the questions, I just want to reflect for just a moment on what I have just read. I see that while you may be a piece of a miracle for someone, you may not, if you delay, you may not be involved in that person's miracle. I don't think that if I were to say no or not follow through with something that I have heard, I don't think that God's going to take that person's miracle away. I think he'll find someone else to do it or find another way to do it. At least I hope so, because I would not want to be the one that stopped someone from receiving a miracle or receiving something they need. Okay, so question number 1, like I said, there's 8. Has God ever given you specific instructions to obey quickly? If so, what were the instructions? I don't recall details of a specific incident where I knew that I was being prompted by the Holy Spirit to do something, say something, act something. I do know that there have been times where it's you need to do something. There's not a sense of urgency. And then there's sometimes where it's you need to say this right now. You need to do this right now. And a lot of times I am hesitant because we're only human, we're questioning. A lot of times when it is something, it's maybe giving outside of my comfort zone or approaching someone that I don't normally talk to, and I have to jump over those little hurdles to get there. But you just have to listen. You have to determine whether it's something that needs to happen right there, or if God's just kind of like planting a seed, and then you'll continue to work on that giving, or to do that follow-up. How are you able to tell if God is speaking? Okay, so some of my close friends know that I'm a little bit of a hot mess, and it takes a little bit to get my attention, to get me to calm down and focus. So one of the things that I don't do typical praying where I recite something over and over. I like to have more of a conversational piece with God whenever I'm talking. And so a lot of times in the evenings, I will do a meditation before bed. And a meditation to me is just getting my mind to quit thinking about the grocery list. Do the dogs have a vet appointment tomorrow? Do the children have stuff to pack lunches? I mean, it's all those things that you just kind of train your mind to shield itself from hearing those thoughts. And so whenever my mind is quiet and I do begin opening up the dialogue, go with me here, guys. Have you ever seen Tyler Perry's character that he plays, Medea, the big, larger than life African-American lady? Like, she's just, I don't know, she's hilarious, quick-witted, and can get your attention really, really fast. A lot of times that is the voice that I hear when I think God's trying to get my attention. So not only when I'm meditating do I hear that, but if I'm out and about and I do think that God's prompting me to do something, say something to someone, bless somebody, it's a very quick get your attention, and you're going to listen, you're going to hear me. So now you know the rest of the story. I keep feeling like someone is sitting here with me, and so I'm now leaning into Dolly. We'll call her Dolly. Okay, so number 3. When God prompts you to action, does it always make sense? Nope. When I first think about that, does it always make sense? I initially go to me. Like, when it's things for me, what I need to do, most of the times, yes, that makes sense, because I know me, I know my life, I know what's going on, and I know kind of the path that I'm wanting to take, or the road I'm on, or the journey. And so, yeah, it does make a little more sense. But whenever you take me out of the equation, no. Because I feel like a lot of times, even though we have friends, we don't know what's going on behind their closed doors. We don't know the real story of what they're going through. They may be struggling emotionally. They may be struggling with their children, with their spouse. They may be struggling financially. Like, you don't know. You don't know the depth of it. So, no. And a lot of times, I feel like blessings or miracles that happen to someone, it's not a simple one-time, one-person involvement. Like the author Sherry said, there were so many contingencies upon her doing both of those. It wasn't just the simple act of her giving money. It was specific amounts of money because specific things, unbeknownst to her, had occurred. And not only, she had to trust people to listen to her, hear her words, then for them to act. So it wasn't God just testing her. It was a lot of people involved. So that's why I think a lot of times it doesn't make sense, because we don't know what they're going through, and we don't know where we are in that line or chain of events. It could have been 12 things had to happen before she had that $125. Like, we don't know. We don't know. Okay, number 4. What did Mary tell the servants to do at the wedding feast when they first ran out of wine? The response: his mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." John 2:5, NIV. Okay, so think about it this way. Mary was in on the secret from before birth. Like, she knew that Jesus was no ordinary man. So, of course, she's just probably, as the adult, maybe one of the senior adults, that, back in that time, the elders were looked upon a lot differently than we view elders. And so she was just like, do it. Don't ask, just do. Okay, number 5. Did Jesus ever give unusual instructions to follow? If so, what? Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine, after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." John 2:7-10, NIV. So I'm just going to let that go as, kind of giving us the example of when Jesus has said some unusual instructions. Water in a pot, having people carry it over to the master. Servants, to my best of knowledge, servants back in those times, they did not have security from their masters. There were a lot of different things. They viewed things differently back then. And, servants would be not only let go, it would shame their family, and some would be put to death for their actions. So I'm sure these servants were scared. They were told to put the water in the wine. Mary had said, just do it. They did it, not really knowing what Jesus's intentions were. And then they were told to take it to the master of the banquet, who could have had their heads right there if they would have shamed him and embarrassed him if it was just water. So kudos for the servants. Okay, sorry. Number 6. How do you think God feels when you vow to immediately obey him, yet you delay your response? I'll read the response. When you make a vow to God, do not delay in fulfilling it. He has no pleasure in fools. Fulfill your vow. Ecclesiastes 5:4 NIV. You know, when, again, I think that sometimes when we hear about doing things, there's not that sense of urgency, and it's a more of a, hey, I'm planting an idea, I'm planting a seed for you to let it grow just a bit in you, in your mind. Maybe you have to do something to make that happen. That's your commitment to it. Then there's the times where, like in her examples, it had to be done that day. You know, God had already taken care of, you know, the finances, or taken care of, you know, making sure somebody had a running car to get somewhere, that somebody had the phone lines working. Like, there were so many things already in place. But I do think that once you hear something and you know in your heart, whether it's kind of an immediate or something that you have to do, I think once you vow to do it, when you promise to do it, you got to follow through with it, no matter how uncomfortable you feel, because part of it is when you hear it, and those where it takes a little bit of time, I think those are little tests, not only of, are you going to, you know, do what I say, but that time gives the enemy to plant seeds of doubt as well. So maybe on that one, you're getting a 2-for-1. You know, you're going to fulfill your end of the deal, but you're also going to get out of it how to not listen to the enemy, or not let doubt or fear stop you. So, all right. Number 7, are you quick to listen, yet slow to obey? Justify your actions, and there's a response. I'm going to say I am quick to listen, slow to hear. I think in today's world right now, that we are required to multitask so much because of technology and everything, that when someone is speaking, you're not hearing them. You hear the noise that they are making, but you stopped listening the first couple of words because you're either trying to get your response back and not letting them finish, or you've already seen somebody else and, oh, I need to go talk to somebody, or, oh, I forgot to put that in my grocery cart, so you don't necessarily hear them. When you are speaking with someone, if they're speaking to you, stop and listen, because you may hear something totally different than what you think they said or think they were gonna say. But back to this question, it's like, are you yet slow to obey? I am quick to listen. I'm slow to hear. I don't necessarily think I'm slow to obey. I may have questions that I ask myself or ask God along the way, but I don't let those questions stop me in what I'm doing. It's kind of, I'm doing them in tandem. But the response is, my dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. James 1:19 and 22 NIV. Yeah, so God's again saying, don't only listen to the word, but also do it. So slow down, hear it, understand it, do it. Okay, and our last question. Are you excited? Last question. I think I've bored her stiff. Do we have a promise from God that He will bless us if we obey His commands and do what is pleasing to the Lord? If so, what is it? Be careful to obey my commands so that all will go well with you and your children after you, because you will be doing what is good and pleasing to the Lord your God. Deuteronomy 12:28 NLT. You know, even though that's only 2 pages, 3 pages long, this chapter has given us quite a bit to think about. Let me know what you think about this chapter, about this series in the comments below. Don't forget to click like and subscribe so that you'll get notified every time a new video drops. Again, hopefully every Saturday we'll meet here and do this together. If you have any questions about the costumes or anything that I've used in them that's not listed in the description below, just let me know. I'm more than happy to give you an answer. And don't forget, check out Sherry Witt's book, Sheep Ears. Again, go ahead, read ahead of me if you don't want to wait every week. I'm wondering, maybe should we give them a little teaser for what next week is going to be? Maybe just the chapter? Okay, she said yes. She said yes. For next week, guys, the chapter is, have you ever admitted you were wrong? That one should be real fun. As always, guys, I want to say, have a great day, sparkle on, but be kind while you do it. Love you guys. Bye.